The 1990 Grand Prix season kicked off on the streets of Phoenix with the new boy at McLaren, Gerhard Berger, on pole position for the first race. Yet, when the lights turned green, it was Tyrrell's new star, Jean Alesi, who grabbed the lead from Berger, followed by Andrea de Cesaris, ahead of Ayrton Senna. First casualty of 1990 was Riccardo Patrese nose cone, taken off by Osella's new driver, Olivier Gouillard, who had started from 8th on the grid. Patrese had to head for the pits to collect a new nose cone. Not a good start to the year. Alesi, amazingly and spectacularly, led from Berger, with Senna demoting de Cesaris from his remarkable third place. But Berger was an early pit visitor after a spin which damaged his McLaren's rear wing, although he would eventually be able to rejoin after repairs. In the meantime, Mansell was fighting his way up from a lowly 17th on the grid, although his Ferrari was smoking badly. Derek Warwick was an early retirement with broken rear suspension. Alain Prost had long seemed in trouble with a smoky gearbox, and one of the pre-season favourites would retire after running fourth. But Alesi was doing a fantastic job to hold the lead, although his constant shadow was Senna, who steadily reeled in the Tyrrell driver. The onboard camera, however, showed the tricky nature of this circuit, and one of the casualties, which was Wojciech Brabham after a frightening accident with Gouillard. Just before half-distance, Ayrton Senna managed to get ahead of Jean Alesi, but the Frenchman was having none of it, brought back and retook the lead. A couple of laps later, Senna had another go. This time, he blocked any comeback from Alesi. Boutsen was back in a lowly third place, and further back was Berger, who had rejoined but was soon to retire with a damaged clutch. Mansell was another visitor. He and his Ferrari had been running in 5th place until his clutch failed. So Ayrton Senna headed for victory, the checkered flag, and his 21st Grand Prix win. He would later admit that it gave him the motivation he needed to beat his opponents for the year. Phoenix saw the proper emergence of a real star in Jean Alesi. Boutsen kicked off his year with 3rd place. Modena made Brabham's trip worthwhile. They had nearly withdrawn from the season. So to Senna went the year's first bottle of Moet and Chandon, and his first victims were Phoenix's Lady Maris and the man who'd given him so much trouble in the race, Jean Alesi. Senna's win was naturally popular in his native Sao Paulo, the next and newest stop on the World Championship trail. Here, Senna started again from pole with Berger alongside, defending his 2nd place from Boutsen. Further back, Alesi didn't want to be a sandwich and eased de Cesaris out of the race, making a dramatic start at this reconstructed Interlagos circuit. Grand Prix debutant Gianni Morbidelli also slowed early, both Dallara in trouble early on. Senna led from the start then, but 2nd place teammate Berger came under increasing pressure from Thierry Boutsen. Down into the first corner on lap 8, Boutsen outbraked Berger to go 2nd. Senna was a few tantalizing seconds ahead. Further back, Michele Alboreto bundled Gouillard's Oka Osella into the matching mud. On lap 18, Prost also caught Berger, closing on him and then repeating the Boutsen manoeuvre. He ducked out of the McLaren slipstream and moved up into 3rd place ahead of the Austrian. Berger would not be comfortable in the McLaren cockpit in his early races. When the front runners came in for new tyres, Boutsen missed his braking point. He overshot his pit, then hit a waiting new wheel and also a mechanic. Team manager Michael Caine pushed the car back and they attempted to do it properly. But Boutsen's Williams now needed a new nose cone as well. Back on the track, the action was fast and furious, where Donnelly was battling with the Japanese contingent. Boutsen finally rejoined, having dropped from 2nd to 13th after his pit incident. Ayrton Senna had a commanding lead, but when lapping Satoru Nakajima, the Japanese driver came across in front of Senna and took off the McLaren's nose cone. Senna rushed to the pits for a replacement, losing the lead. For Tracy was a late race retirement from 5th place with an oil leak. And that, in turn, caused a small fire. So that left Alain Prost in the lead and heading for victory under the eyes of Senna's gorgeous blonde girlfriend, Shusha. This was Prost's 6th victory in Brazil and his first for Ferrari. Berger salvaged 2nd, Senna was 3rd, denied victory in Brazil again. Mansell was 4th, Boutsen was down in 5th after his dramatic race promised so much more. Ferrari's Brazilian victory ensured a superb crowd at Imola for the 3rd round of the series, but the red cars were pushed back to row 3 by the McLarens and Williamses. There was soon drama when Mansell ran wide and sent up a cloud of dust. Everyone moved left, Nakajima hitting our camera car driven by Capelli and putting them both out of the race. At the next corner, Alesi found himself on the grass and eased over on the Ferraris. Behind him, Donnelly had a spin, sending Suzuki onto the grass. It was all drama. But leading, however, was Ayrton Senna. Behind him, Thierry Boutsen, then Gerhard Berger, Riccardo Patrese, Jean Alesi, and the Ferraris, being split by Nelson Piquet. But Ayrton Senna suffered a split wheel, and the resulting punctured tyre caused him to go off the track, into a sand trap, and out of this Grand Prix. That left Thierry Boutsen leading, closely followed by Gerhard Berger, who was trying hard to overtake the Williams. Behind them came a gap to Riccardo Patrese. Boutsen from Berger then. And behind Riccardo Patrese, Alain Prost, while Jean Alesi's dramatic race continued with this incident with Nelson Piquet. Yet they would be great friends for the rest of the season. Leader Boutsen's Renault engine failed after a missed gear and he retired, allowing Berger into the lead. As Boutsen headed for the pits, Patrese went into 2nd place. Mansell overtook him and was catching the leader, but one interruption was this contretemps with Andrea de Cesaris. However, Mansell's Ferrari was smoking ominously. Prost flat-spotted his tyres and pitted for more from 5th, just before half distance, but didn't lose a place. However, Mansell followed him into the pits after a superb race, losing 2nd place to retire when the oil smoke ran out. Riccardo Patrese overtook the ailing Berger and went into the lead, pushing Berger back to 2nd place. Alessandro Nannini was ahead of Alain Prost and heading for 3rd place. But it was Riccardo Patrese and the Williams Renault who took his 3rd Grand Prix victory. Prost was in 4th place after his pit stop and Piquet 5th, having taken his revenge on Jean Alesi by demoting him to 6th. Patrese had finally avenged the mistake he made when he crashed out of the lead in 1983. Alessandro Nannini was another happy local hero in 3rd place. 2 weeks later came spectacular Monaco with the girls, the sun, the harbour and its powerboats. Local resident World Championship leader Senna was much in demand in the close confines of Monaco with its brilliance, beauty and glamour. This was Senna's 45th pole position, but Alain Prost, his rival, would start alongside, ahead of Jean Alesi, who considered this his 12th Grand Prix to be one that he could win. Amazingly, everyone got through Saint-Devote the first corner, with Eric Bernard ahead of our cameraman, Alessandro Nannini. Up the hill, Senna led from Prost, but Prost left the door open going down to Mirabeau. Alesi went through, Berger tried to follow him and hit Prost, spinning him round and creating a huge traffic jam with its accompanying near misses and accidents. It was obvious that starter Roland Brunserada would have to stop the race. In slow motion, we watch as Modena rides over a Lotus's rear wheel. As their race cars were damaged, Berger and Prost ran back for their spares, in both cases set up for their teammates, but they were able to restart. Once again, it was Senna from Prost at the start, Alesi going into third place from Berger. Amazingly, they all made it safely through Saint-Devote second time round too. Senna leading from Prost then, with Alesi third, Berger fourth. This would be the battle of the race, as Senna pulled away in front. Alesi in the revolutionary new Tyrrell did an incredible job to challenge the Ferrari ahead and keep Berger at bay behind, as the trio weaved around the tight confines of the most difficult racing circuit in the world. He moved into second place when Prost retired with battery failure, while teammate Mansell dinged his front wing on Boutsen. Piquet had similar problems overtaking the Belgian and had this wild spin, but stalled his engine and retired for the only time in the first 8 races. While Senna maintained a gap in front, the Alesi-Berger duel was breathtaking. Alesi even managed to hold off Berger and drew away from him for a while. Boutsen was in fourth place when Mansell retired. Senna was caught in the final stages by the second place battle, but he won with Alesi in second place, holding off Berger. While Senna savoured his slowing down lap, Caffey took fifth place and Bernard took sixth, and his first World Championship points. After 4 rounds of the series itself, Senna had a 6-point lead over his own teammate, with Alesi in a remarkable third place. It was back across the Atlantic to Canada for round 4 of the series, where Ferrari revealed their secret weapon. No, Mansell wasn't the driver of what was probably the only intentionally aquatic Ferrari in the world. Typically, it was technologically advanced, for it had its own outboard where everyone else had to paddle. It was judged contrary to the spirit of the mechanics race across Montreal's Olympic rowing basin. It was nearly as wet for the race itself to begin with as it had been the previous year. Senna was on pole position for the 4th race running, and he went straight into the lead from Berger, even though the Austrian was later adjudged to have jumped the start and would earn a minute's penalty. Behind them came Nannini, Prost, Alesi, and the rest taking it very carefully. That is, all except Martini, who was the first spinner. However, the Italian Minardi driver was able to rejoin. Senna led from Berger in second place. Nannini was next from Alesi. Behind Alesi came Nelson Piquet, and then Alain Prost, being challenged by Thierry Boutsen. Olivier Gouillard was followed by an incredible traffic jam behind his ill-handling Osella, everyone desperate to get past. Alessandro Nannini blew his front left tyre and created his own traffic jam. With the Ferraris close behind, Jean Alesi went up the back of Thierry Boutsen and lost his nose cone. It was busy in the pits, with replacement nose cones and tyres being changed to slicks. But if you didn't stick to the dry line, this happened. Thierry Boutsen trying to overtake Alain Prost hits Nicola Larini. Alessandro Nannini went off as well, and then Jean Alesi collided with his already abandoned car. Fortunately, Nannini was already out of it. Piquet had a great battle with the Ferraris, finally overtaking Prost to move into second place. Berger, running less wing, overtook leader Senna in the drier conditions. Mansell took Prost for third place. Prost, however, would be demoted further by Gerhard Berger on corrected time. Ayrton Senna, however, was the winner of this Canadian Grand Prix. But what were the conditions really like for him?
The conditions were just quite slippery to start with wet tires, and then when we changed to slick tires, the circuit is not completely dry and you must stay on the line, because if you go a little bit offline, you have a problem. To overtake other cars, you have also a big problem, because you must stay on line. It was very dirty offline. So it was a very tough race for everybody.
The conditions were certainly treacherous. Bernard was just one of those to crash, as did Alesi, Nannini and Boutsen. But all that was forgotten in the sun of Mexico City, however, where Berger was again on pole position, this time ahead of Patrese. Prost was way back in 13th place on the grid. At the start, Patrese got away tremendously to lead, successfully defending his place from the McLarens behind. Patrese led then from Senna second and Berger third. Nakajima had an early spin at the first corner. Senna whipped out of Patrese's slipstream to try and pass him, but didn't, while Boutsen was fourth. Patrese then led Senna. Senna having a look round the Williams going into the final corner, but having to stay behind it. But as they ended lap one, Senna ducked out of Patrese's slipstream again, and this time took the lead down the long straight. Before the first corner, Berger had lined himself up to follow his teammate past the Williams Renault of Riccardo Patrese. Berger pitted from second place after 13 laps for new tyres, very much a deciding factor at the circuit. He rejoined 11th. Coming through the field were the Ferrari drivers, Mansell getting past Thierry Boutsen. And there was more bad luck for Williams with Riccardo Patrese in the pits for new tyres. Mansell's next victim was Nelson Piquet. But Alain Prost was making similar progress behind him, and very soon had caught his teammate. Prost got past Mansell, and now there was just Ayrton Senna ahead of them. But while Senna was dropping back, teammate Gerhard Berger was making progress on his new tyres, overtaking Thierry Boutsen's Williams Renault. The crowd loved this race, for now the Ferraris had caught Ayrton Senna. Alain Prost getting past the ailing McLaren first of all, and Nigel Mansell soon to follow him past as well. Riding on board with Senna, we discovered that it wasn't his tyres that were going off, but that the right rear had a slow puncture, and suddenly it exploded. While Senna made his way back to the pits, Nigel Mansell was in trouble. However, he was able to rejoin. And while Senna staggered back, Gerhard Berger came up on Nigel Mansell and overtook, getting into second place. Mansell down to third. But Mansell was having none of it and went round the outside of Gerhard Berger in a fabulous overtaking manoeuvre, while Alain Prost took the checkered flag, a great win for him. Behind him, Mansell was second, Berger third, Nannini in fourth place, ahead of Boutsen and Piquet. Mansell went walkabout on the rostrum to celebrate his overtaking manoeuvre with Berger. Ferrari had soundly beaten McLaren, but there was mutual celebration after certainly the best race of the season so far. Then it was back to Europe and France at the Paul Ricard circuit for the last time, where Mansell, using Ferrari's revised V12 engine, claimed pole position ahead of Berger. The Briton took the lead going down into the first corner, ahead of Berger, Senna, Nannini, with our cameraman Thierry Boutsen having a tricky time at the first corner for the second year running. On the Mistral straight, Mansell led, but Berger was shaping up to demote him and did to Mansell what the Ferrari had done to him in Mexico 3 weeks before, overtaking round the outside into the very quick Scene corner. So Berger led from Mansell, then Senna, Nannini, Patrese, Prost, Boutsen, Piquet, Alesi, Capelli. As they started lap 2, Senna then lined up to try and overtake Mansell as Berger was beginning to pull away. On the Mistral straight, Senna moved into second place. But the McLaren duo were never able to pull away from Mansell and Nannini. Berger, Senna, Mansell and Nannini. Then came a slight gap to Patrese and Prost. The Ferrari driver was the first of those to pit for tyres, being sent on his way in a very rapid 7.4 seconds. The leading question, however, was which of the first four would pit first for tyres. In the end, it was Berger who came in first with a slow stop of 12.7 seconds. But teammate Senna's was 4 seconds longer, and it dropped him out of the top 6. Capelli, however, didn't change tyres and found himself in the lead. A new floor on the Leighton house had seen the Italian graduate from non-qualifier in Mexico to leading this French Grand Prix. But with 20 laps to go, he was caught by Prost, who had already had great difficulty trying to overtake Capelli's Leighton House teammate, Mauricio Gugelmin. After 17 laps behind the Italian, Prost was able to overtake him to claim his third consecutive home victory. Behind the Ferrari came Capelli's Leighton House, a very popular second. And after Gugelmin's retirement, Senna salvaged third place from Piquet, Berger and Patrese. Capelli's intervention pushed championship rival Senna down to third place. But how had Capelli got into the lead?
I have to wait for the others to stop because I knew that everybody there was stopped for tires. So I actually tried to save tires and brakes and just to concentrate to stay in the line and not to to build up the temperature in the tires. Then at the end, unfortunately, when I was in front of Prost, I had some problem with the oil lights of the engine, and so in the last 2 laps the engine started to have problems, and I'm lucky to finish second.
The congratulations were fully justified. It had been a thrilling race, and Senna was grateful to have salvaged third place. Ferrari again had their revised V12 engines at Silverstone a week later, and after an initial upset, Mansell, willed on by his home crowd again, put his Ferrari on pole. When the lights turned green, Mansell was pipped by Senna on the long drag down to Stowe Corner. So the Brazilian led from the Englishmen, Berger, Boutsen, Prost and Alesi. Already Eric Bernard was up ahead of the 2 Lotuses and looking promising. Behind these 6 came Riccardo Patrese in his 200th Grand Prix from Suzuki, Capelli, Nannini, Bernard and the rest. Mansell was determined to lead this British Grand Prix and was soon shaping up to challenge Senna. On lap 9, the British driver dived down the inside of the Brazilian and briefly got past him, only to run wide so that Senna retook the lead. Berger was still watching in third place. Then Mansell tried to overtake Senna again at bridge. This time he was more successful. He got past Senna and remained in the lead. So Mansell led from Senna, but then the Brazilian had a spin. Senna headed for the pits for new tyres, dropping back to 10th place. Out front, however, Mansell was then challenged by Berger. And the pair were being gained on by Alain Prost. Thierry Boutsen was in 4th place. But Berger took Mansell when the Ferrari's gearbox briefly hiccuped, the leading trio reforming as Berger, Mansell and Prost. Further back, Patrese, Nannini and Capelli indulged in a sort of pas de trois, but all three rejoined. The Leighton House driver would get up to 3rd place, only to retire with a broken fuel rail. Mansell retook the lead from Berger, but then pulled off with a faulty electronic gearbox connection, leaving Prost to lead. The immensely disappointed Mansell later announced his intended retirement from Grand Prix racing. Berger's throttle linkage broke, which lost him 2nd place, with just 4 laps to go. So Prost was able to claim his first ever hat-trick of victories. Boutsen salvaged 2nd place from a lucky Senna in 3rd place. Bernard was 4th, with Piquet starting from the back of the grid 5th in the Benetton with its revised Ford engine. In the World Championship, Prost now led the series for the first time by 2 points from Senna, with Berger 3rd at mid-season. The second half of the season began at Hockenheim, once again with Ayrton Senna on pole position and Gerhard Berger alongside him. When the lights turned green, it was Senna away first, but further back there was drama when Modena clutch broke, and in the ensuing chaos, Emanuele Pirro's Dallara crashed, and he was injured by a wheel off his own car. Philippe Alliot was also involved. Senna led from Berger. Then came Prost, Mansell, Patrese, Boutsen, Piquet, then Alesi, Nannini, Capelli and the rest. Would this be a McLaren show again, as it was last year, we wondered? But the Ferraris were giving chase. However, the brute force of Honda's engine suited this circuit. Senna retained his lead from Berger, but the Ferraris continued to give chase, not letting the McLarens pull away too much. However, finally, they began to ease away. Mansell, however, ran wide out of the first chicane, damaged the underside of his car, and that resulted in instant retirement. Senna had an almost comfortable lead, but then pitted for new tyres. In spite of a very quick pit stop, when he rejoined, he found himself behind Nannini. The Italian had started on a different compound tyre and did not intend to pit. For 13 laps, Senna tried everything he knew to overtake the Italian, even though he was on the newer tyres. After Piquet's third-place Benetton's engine broke, Prost caught Boutsen and was challenging the fourth-placed Williams, and after 4 laps, eventually overtook him. For lap after lap, Senna followed Nannini, but finally he was able to overtake the Italian. The Brazilian was then able to draw away and take the checkered flag for his 24th victory. Nannini finished second, while Berger was third. Prost was fourth, Patrese fifth in his 201st Grand Prix. Senna was back in the World Championship lead as the series headed to a newly liberated Eastern Europe and Hungary. Here, of course, the hero was Gerhard Berger from across the border in Austria. Berger would start third on the grid, but on pole for the first time in his Grand Prix career was Thierry Boutsen. He almost lost the lead at the start, just managing to prevent his own teammate Patrese from overtaking on the inside and Berger going round the outside. Senna dropped to 6th place on the opening lap, so it was Boutsen from Berger, Patrese, Mansell and the rest. Boutsen opened up a small gap briefly to Berger, but Patrese was challenged by Mansell, followed by Alesi, Senna, Nannini, De Cesaris, Piquet, Prost, only 10th. Boutsen was soon under tremendous pressure again from Berger, Patrese and Mansell. Senna dropped from 5th to 9th with an early tyre stop, and trouble with the right rear wheel cost him more time. Out front, however, Boutsen, Berger, Patrese and Mansell made a high-speed quartet. Alesi dropped back and then out altogether when he tangled while lapping Martini. Also out a corner later at half distance was Alain Prost, who lost 7th with a jammed gearbox. Berger made a late gamble and pitted for tyres, eventually rejoining 6th, while Mansell dropped from 3rd to 5th when overtaken by first Nannini into the first corner. And then a corner later in spectacular fashion by Ayrton Senna as well. Nannini was up in 2nd place when he was bundled out of the race by Senna, leaving Boutsen from Senna, Mansell and Berger. But then the same thing happened to Mansell when Berger tried to overtake. All of which left Boutsen holding off a late challenge from Senna after a great close race and only 2 to finish among what was a leading quintet. Piquet finished 3rd from Patrese, who made a late tyre stop, Warwick finishing, and Bernard was there again. It was a superb race for Thierry Boutsen, under pressure almost throughout for 77 laps, applauded by Senna, the only man really to challenge him. Boutsen therefore went to Spa as the returning hero, and if that wasn't a surprise, then the clear blue skies certainly were. The smiling Senna once again started on pole position, his 47th. When the green light came on, however, there was drama in the middle of the pack. While Senna led from Berger and Prost, Piquet nudged Mansell into the barrier. In the ensuing chaos, the Lotuses collided, and Donnelly had to pull off. Mansell's Ferrari was left in the barrier. Later on that first lap, Modena and Nakajima collided. All of which contributed to a race stoppage. At the second start, Senna again took the lead, with Boutsen going round the outside of Berger into 2nd place, the Austrian going into 3rd. And they all made it safely round the La Source hairpin this time. Senna led from Boutsen, then Berger and Piquet, but not everyone was successful. Barilla crashed heavily at the Rédillon, his car badly damaged, although he was unhurt in spite of a tremendous impact. Once again, the race was stopped. So the cars lined up for the third time, with Senna again taking the lead from pole position, and Berger going into second from Prost, with Boutsen sneaking down the inside into fourth. Everyone around safely again. Prost soon caught and overtook Gerhard Berger. Now it was Boutsen's turn to close on the Austrian. But the McLaren driver was the first to pit for new tyres on lap 18, while Boutsen retired from third at about the same time, the restart proving too much for the transmission. Berger rejoined behind sixth place Piquet. When Senna stopped for tyres, he was desperate to come out of the pits just ahead of Nannini's non-stop Benetton and prevent a repeat of Hockenheim. He was successful. Prost managed to overtake the Italian, who was left to battle with Berger. Nannini and Berger swapped places on a couple of occasions, but eventually Berger remained ahead. Senna claimed his third consecutive Belgian Grand Prix victory, with Prost in second place, while Berger was third. Nannini, of course, was fourth. Teammate Piquet was again in the points, and compatriot Gugelmin scored his first point of the year for Leighton House. A pattern was now established. Senna, Prost, Berger. But Senna had opened up his lead in the World Championship to 13 points over Prost. These two now battling on their own in the championship tussle. Round 12 was the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, where Ferrari were the focus of attention as usual. Off the grid, there was a great drag down to the first corner, with poleman Senna maintaining his lead ahead of Berger, who overtook front row man Alain Prost. Alesi was next from Mansell, Boutsen, Nannini, Gugelmin, Patrese, Piquet, then Warwick and Donnelly in the Lotuses, while there were spinners further back. Senna led from Berger, while Alesi moved ahead of Prost before the second chicane. Then came Mansell and the rest, Patrese overtaking Gugelmin. At the end of lap 1, Alesi, trying to secure a seat at Ferrari for 1991, was amazingly still ahead of the much more powerful Ferraris. But out of the Parabolica, Derek Warwick crashed spectacularly at 150 miles per hour. Thankfully, the fuel tank was not ruptured, and although the car came to rest upside down, Warwick was unhurt. He walked back to the pits, took over his spare car, and when the race was restarted, he was on the grid. Once again, although Prost was on the front row, it was the two McLarens that let down into the first chicane, with Senna ahead of Berger from a brake-locking Prost. Alesi was next, then Mansell and the two Williamses. But once again, Alesi had moved ahead of Prost by the second chicane and was soon attempting to repeat his challenge on the two leading McLarens. But that challenge came to an early end. Alesi hit the curb at the first chicane on lap 5 and spun out. Berger was then challenged by Prost, who overtook the Austrian when he missed a gear. Mansell then lined himself up to do the same, flying in fourth place. Senna came through to win for the first time in Italy, and this, he would later say, was the most decisive race and his greatest win in the 1990 championship, even though Prost was again in second place ahead of Berger, as in Belgium. Nakajima was the only V8-powered runner in the top 6. The delighted Senna now had a 16-point lead in the World Championship, with Berger now third. Boutsen was 10 points behind in fourth place, not far ahead of Piquet in fifth. Mansell started from pole position again in Portugal with teammate Prost alongside, an all-Ferrari front row, with Prost desperate to win to keep his championship hopes alive. But at the start, Mansell's car swerved in front of Prost, and that allowed the two McLarens to go straight into the lead, with Senna ahead and followed through by Berger. Mansell in third, Prost already back to fifth place, behind Piquet. Behind Prost came Patrese ahead of Alesi, Boutsen, Nannini, Suzuki. Next up was Pirot, whose teammate Andrea de Cesaris took a wide line, which took him even wider and into the sand trap and out of the race. So Senna led from Berger and Mansell, while Prost was up to fourth place ahead of Piquet by lap 13. All four leaders pitted for tyres, but Mansell would emerge ahead of Berger in second place. He was behind Senna and then caught the Brazilian, and for 14 laps he attempted to get past. Finally, he ducked out of the slipstream to take the lead, where the previous year the pair had collided with such dire consequences. Mansell then led from Senna, who was being gained on at the end by both teammate Berger and Alain Prost. Prost managed to overtake the Austrian. But could he, in the final 10 laps, overtake Ayrton Senna? The question was never answered. Eighth-placed Alex Cathy collided with Aguri Suzuki. The footwork arrows hit the barrier hard, and as the Italian suffered an ankle injury and couldn't easily be extracted from his wrecked car, the race was stopped prematurely. Mansell then was acclaimed the winner, equaling Sterling Moss's 16 Grand Prix victories, with Senna second and Prost third. The Frenchman would later complain not only of Mansell's start, but also Ferrari's management, which had not given him the maximum opportunity to continue to fight for his championship chances. A week later, Grand Prix racing was stunned when Martin Donnelly had probably the biggest accident that we'd seen for many years. The Ulsterman amazingly survived the enormous impact, but he was badly injured. His car was completely wrecked. A happier note came from Ayrton Senna with his 50th pole position. And at the start of the race, he went straight into the lead. But further back there was drama as Alesi was forced offline by Berger and into the path of Patrese, who punctured the Frenchman's rear tyre. Alesi went out, and also so did Emanuele Pirot. Senna led from Prost, Mansell in third place, now driving to team orders. Prost had his sights firmly on Senna, and Mansell, not entirely willingly, was now committed to helping his teammates. If there was any chance left for Prost, this was it. For lap after lap, he tailed his adversary, but there was a strategy based firmly in his mind as he compared his Ferrari's handling with that of the McLaren so close in front. As far as Prost was concerned, if he couldn't get the lead at the start, then he would try and do so at the mid-race tyre stops. Meanwhile, Satoru Nakajima spun out of the race on lap 13. The Senna-Prost duel continued for 25 laps, with Mansell watching and waiting until he pitted for new tyres on lap 20. He was followed by fourth-placed Berger a lap later. Senna came into the pits for new tyres a lap after Prost. It was a good, quick stop. But as he accelerated out of the pits, so the Ferraris went past. Mansell waving Prost into what was second place. The Englishman then making things difficult for Ayrton Senna. Prost was now second to Piquet's Benetton, which, as usual, hadn't stopped the tyres. But then Piquet conveniently ran wide, allowing Prost into the lead. Senna pitted for new tyres to cure a handling problem, but that was caused by a water leak and he retired, while teammate Berger was bundled out of the race when he challenged fourth-place Boutsen. As Senna watched 9 points go to his rival, Prost took the checkered flag, keeping his championship hopes alive with victory number 44. Behind him, Nigel Mansell completed the Ferrari 1-2, with Alessandro Nannini ahead of the Williamses. Aguri Suzuki was once again in the points. Ferrari team manager Cesare Fiorio was delighted with his team's second 1-2 of the season. Meanwhile, the entente was more cordial between the two Ferrari men than it had been at the previous race. So to Japan for the penultimate round of the World Championship, with a title battle well and truly joined in front of a huge, knowledgeable and expectant crowd. This was the showdown, the race everyone was waiting for. Although Senna was on pole, he felt he was on the wrong side of the track, and as if to prove his point, Prost made the better start and took the lead. But as he did so, Senna tried to pass, the pair collided at the first corner, and as we rode with Alain Prost, it was all over within seconds. Prost and Senna were out. It left Berger in the lead, Mansell in second place, ahead of the Benettons with Piquet and Roberto Moreno deputising for the injured Alessandro Nannini. The Williamses were next, then Warwick and Suzuki already moving up ahead of Martini, and then Johnny Herbert replacing the injured Donnelly. But riding with Mansell, we saw Berger spin off on his teammate Justin Debris at the first corner of lap 2. Mansell now led from the two Benettons and the two Williamses. Roberto Moreno was already in an amazing third place. Teammate Piquet was challenging Mansell hard. Meanwhile, Senna and Prost made their way back to the pits. One, an elated world champion, the other, a devastated loser. So what was Senna's view of the accident?
In a race like this, where you're fighting for the championship, you have to go for everything. And as it happened in many other occasions in the past, there have been accidents in the first corner. I was on pole. Prost did a better start, but on the first corner I was coming faster than him. I had a better engine acceleration, and there was a gap. I went for it. He closed the door, and then was nothing I could do to avoid the contact. If he had not closed the door, nothing would have happened, and we would have continued racing. But unfortunately, he closed the door, and I could not avoid the contact.
Mansell led and extended his lead over the Benetton, which he could be sure would not be stopping for tyres. Mansell, however, came in for new rubber, but after an excellent Ferrari pit stop for new tyres, he lit up his rear wheels and promptly broke a drive shaft. He was out of the race. So the Benettons led, with Piquet leading Moreno all the way to the checkered flag. A fantastic result to encourage the injured Nannini after his helicopter accident. Moreno was now in a fantastic second place. Poor Mansell, however, was the second devastated Ferrari driver on this day. Meanwhile, Aguri Suzuki was thrilling his countrymen with a great third place. So Nelson Piquet scored a superb win, his first for 3 years, making it Benetton's first ever 1-2, as Moreno in second place in only his 8th Grand Prix. After a season of frustration at the Eurobrunn, what a way to end the year with a man who began his racing career as Nelson Piquet's protégé. Suzuki was the immensely popular third, ahead of the disappointing Williams, and Nakajima also scoring points for the Japanese in 6th place. A tremendous rostrum with 3 very happy drivers, partially making up for the disappointing end to the World Championship. So disappointing and controversial was his Japanese retirement that Alain Prost didn't even attend the end-of-term photograph in Adelaide. However, there was a whole clutch of world champions: Jackie Stewart, Wayne Gardner, Sterling Moss. This was the 500th World Championship round, and there was tremendous celebration, with one Manuel Fangio present as well. Jack Brabham was there too. When the lights turned green, however, the Ferraris were trying hard to get past the McLarens on the front row as usual. Senna led, however, from Berger, Mansell, Prost, Alesi, and then Piquet and the Williamses. But while Prost watched Mansell and the McLarens ahead, he was now pursued by Piquet. Behind the Brazilian came Alesi, then Patrese, Boutsen, Moreno, Warwick, Capelli, Martini, and the rest. While the McLarens led the Ferraris, Patrese was making great progress and got past Alesi for 6th place, although it was still a McLaren versus Ferrari duel at the front. Mansell then closed on Berger. He was challenging the Austrian when suddenly the Austrian flicked on his ignition switch, allowing Mansell to go through to 2nd place. And Prost would try the same thing, but instead it was Piquet who moved up. Now Senna was leading Mansell, followed by Piquet, who squeezed past Berger for 3rd place. Nicola Larini had a huge spin over the curves, but amazingly managed to restart. 6th place Patrese found himself sideways when trying to lap Morbidelli. Mansell had a spin and then pitted to change his lit-up tyres. It took just 7.7 seconds, and he rejoined in 5th place. On his new tyres, he caught Gerhard Berger. And when the Austrian went wide, Mansell went past. Senna, meanwhile, was in gearbox trouble, failed to get 2nd gear and went straight off into the barrier, retiring for the 3rd race running. It was an unsatisfactory end to his 2nd World Championship year. Piquet now led the 2 Ferraris. Mansell, on his newer tyres, had the advantage and moved up to 2nd place ahead of teammate Prost. Piquet's tyres, however, were not giving him the grip he hoped for, and he ran wide. Mansell was on a tremendous charge, and it was clear there was going to be a fine finale to this World Championship year, with Mansell chasing Piquet as they threaded their way through the back markers. Benetton versus Ferrari. Mansell steadily reeled in Piquet, and it was clear that the last lap was going to be the vital one. Prost went wide and was able to rejoin without losing a place. But on this final lap of the year, Mansell tried to go down the inside of Piquet 3 corners from home. He didn't quite make it, locked up and went wide, allowing Nelson Piquet to take his second victory running for Benetton and Ford. A great win for him after a highly successful season. Mansell was a fighting second in his last drive for Ferrari. Prost back in 3rd place, with Berger a disappointing 4th from Boutsen. Final point of the year went to the lapped Patrese, while Nigel tried to give everyone a farewell drink from the rostrum. Even though the World Championship had been settled, it was a great final race for the year. So these are the final championship standings, with the prospect of the Senna versus Prost rivalry continuing in 1991, with the added ingredients of Mansell at Williams and Alesi in a Ferrari. We leave you now with pole position maestro Senna's qualifying lap at Monaco. This is the Master at Work.